All right, let's try this again. Oh, my hair's a mess. That's better. Um, I just started a video a little minute ago and audio didn't work. This hasn't been happening to me all the time. I don't know what's wrong with this system. It's an old computer. Anyway, so I got up this morning and was checking my uh, news feeds, and I had a headline from CNN. I don't read a lot of CNN, so this is about the only time I get an alert that there's something of interest. So, and it was actually of interest, and it continues a theme that I noticed really at the start of the Trump administration, and then I finally did. I've made two videos on it now, commenting on this kind of ongoing little drama happening in the Trump administration. Um, I even had a list. I think I lost it. It was here on the screen where I was keeping a list of all the things the Trump administration has done to make it more difficult to report on climate science and even to do weather forecasting. For example, I'll just mention a couple of them. You've probably heard some of this already. We've been pulled out of the Paris Climate Accords, which is meaningless because that was always meaningless. But also, our scientists have been pulled out of the IPCC process. And if you follow, climate topics, you'll know what that is. We've been pulled out of the IPCC process. We won't be participating. And that might mean there isn't even going to be an IPCC report. That could be It could be we've had all of those we're going to have. I'm fine with that, by the way, because they're a complete waste of time. Also, Elon Musk, when he was still head of Doge, was going after the National Weather Service, the Climate Prediction Center, the severe, no, no, I can't remember. I just had it on my tip of my tongue a minute ago. Storm Prediction Center. The Doge was going after NASA, and now we have a new. And I commented on this in a previous video. So, but there's more. If you thought they were done, they weren't. Now there's more. So here's the headline. Current today, end of June. Trump administration will cut hurricane forecasters out of key satellite data in 1 month. They were actually set to lose this data today. So basically with no warning. But somebody high up in the National Weather Service got on the phone and started complaining and, hey, we just entered hurricane season. We really need this data. And so the Trump administration gave them 30 more days. Okay, fine. What about the next 30 years, right? So anyway, just to do some level setting. Well, I could read the first paragraph, and this says the level setting. Basically, this is a satellite that is doing hurricane data collection. So they're focusing the satellite on hurricanes as they're developing. And that data is sent to the National Weather Service to help them with their hurricane tracking. But the satellite in question is the Department of Defense satellite. Okay, the Department of Defense has been around a long time, and satellites have been around for a long time, and the National Weather Service has been around for a long time, and the Department of Defense has been perfectly comfortable sharing this satellite data with the National Weather Service. No, they needed their own satellites because they have troop deployments all over the world, and they also have their Navy at sea. And so, of course, they're interested in what's happening with hurricanes, that there are, defense questions. So they have their own satellite, but they share the data with the civil side, the National Weather Service. And that makes perfect sense, right? You're leveraging some defense money to put this expensive satellite in space. And I'm sure that part of the funding request was that there would be benefits for the civilian side of weather tracking and storm prediction. So they've been doing that. When did the Department of Defense get involved with weather tracking, and when did they decide to start sharing this data? Probably 20 years ago, right? They've been doing this all this time. All of a sudden, now there's a problem. And the only thing that's changed, of course, superficially, the only thing that's changed is now we have the Donald Trump administration and all of his plans on how to deal with things. So let me just read from the article. The article is nonpartisan. It's really just an explainer of what's going on. I'll probably skip part of it and go right to the bottom. The abrupt cutoff of satellite data crucial for hurricane forecasting is delayed by 1 month until July 31st, according to a message posted by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Monday. That's NOAA, which we pronounce NOAA. The impending data loss from a Department of Defense weather satellite system was announced on June 25th, which is just a few days ago, and slated to take place no later than Monday, according to an earlier NOAA announcement. The Defense Department will still maintain the Defense Meteorological Satellite Program, meaning they're keeping the satellite, but announced last week it would cease sharing the imagery with NOAA and NASA. That's it. There's nothing wrong with the satellite. And there wasn't anything wrong with the data up to today. They just decided they're going to cease doing it. The decision, which was initiated by the Defense Department, so the decision did not come from the Weather Service. It came from Pete Hegseth and the Defense Department, caused an uproar among meteorologists, public officials, and the media in the midst of hurricane season. Of course, they would like to be able to do storm prediction. The fear is that the missing information could degrade the accuracy of hurricane forecasts. The move comes in the wake of steep personnel cuts at the National Weather Service and other parts of NOAA. So the personnel cuts are not at the Department of Defense. It's not that they've lost personnel, and so now the data transfer is like, what, too difficult or something? Who knows? No, the personnel cuts, as I've mentioned in previous videos, the personnel cuts are happening at the National Weather Service and NOAA. They are the ones having their personnel cut. They are the ones who are losing key analysts who would have been able to do storm prediction and hurricane tracking. Those people have been let go by DOGE. They've been fired. And now some critical data has been ceased. Now I'm going to skip to the bottom. You can read this yourself. It's informative, but it doesn't really matter. The fact is, it's happening. There you go. That's the key takeaway. The Department of Defense is ceasing to share data that up until the 25th, they were perfectly happy to share with the civilian side of storm prediction. I will go down to the bottom and I will say, okay, here's why the Defense Department says they are not going to share this data anymore. The Defense Department's rationale for cutting off this data has to do with cybersecurity concerns stemming from the way the data is transmitted between agencies. That is absolute bullshit. Nothing has changed. It's weather data, people. Do you think the Chinese don't have their own weather satellites? Do you think the Chinese don't have their own storm prediction centers? And do the Chinese and the Russians and the North Koreans and the Iranians, do you think they care at all about this data? What, they're going to grab it and they're going to share it with their people? They're going to share it with their own militaries? I mean, please. For fuck's sake, please come up with a better excuse for not sharing this data with the civilian side of our own weather service. Now, in my prior videos on this exact same topic, why is the Trump administration going after the weather service? Why? Why, of all the goddamn things you could want to do for some stupid ideological reason, why would the National Weather Service, the Storm Prediction Center, ever float to the top of the list of the things you're going to go after? Why? Why the fuck? Explain this to me. There is an explanation, and it's a good one. And if I were in their situation, I'm not, but I know what their situation is. I know exactly what their situation is. And if I was in that situation, I would do exactly what they're doing. They really have no choice at this point. They have no choice. They have to stop storm prediction. They must cease operations at the National Weather Service. You can have your state weather service, but you can't have a national weather service. And they have to gut the Storm Prediction Center. And if they can, they must completely shut down the NOAA and possibly even NASA. They must do this immediately and effectively and as silently and stealthily as possible. And here's why. The reason they must do this is because physics is real. Physics is real. Examples: gravity is real. Hey, that's a simple thing to say, right? But I have to say that. Electricity is real. Sunlight is real. Stupid things to say, but I have to say that because reality is real. And you can deny reality all you want to. You can jump out of the airplane without a parachute on because someone told you that's going to be really cool and you're going to fly like a bird. And you could do that, but you're still going to hit the ground at speed because you didn't have a parachute. Why? Because gravity is real. And someone could tell you jumping out of an airplane without a parachute is actually a great thing to try. Lots of people do it every day, and they fly like birds, and it's wonderful. You don't need a parachute. That's a myth. Needing a parachute, that's just a myth. The people who know better, the people who study these things and do their own research, they know from having done it themselves that you can jump out of the back of an airplane without a parachute because this whole gravity thing, that's just wokeism. That's just a science agenda. That's just like fluoride and chemtrails. It's like, they're always denying things and trying to mess with you, but you know better. You've done your own research. And I'm telling you from my research that you can jump out of the back of an airplane without a parachute because gravity is just a concept. And if you don't want gravity, then you don't have to have it. And that's the kind of conversation we're having around global heating. That it's a hoax, that it's not real, that if you don't want it to be real, it's not real, and this and that and the other thing. Meanwhile, behind all of this denial and misinformation and obfuscation and Dunning-Kruger asshattery, there's reality. It never went anywhere. Reality is real. That's what we call it, reality. And reality is based and backed by physics. And when things happen in physics, they happen. Gravity never stopped being real. Global heating and the greenhouse effect never stopped being real. Fossil fuel burning, which emits CO2, never stopped being a thing. The accumulation of CO2 in the atmosphere is measurable. Instruments. It's instrumental. Like measuring the temperature with a thermometer. It's just measure it. And maybe you don't like the results of the measurement, and maybe that's scary, or you wish it was something else. But there it is. Wow. I just measured the CO2 level in the atmosphere. Oh, and look, we have 50 years or even more of data. And look what it's doing. It's going up. That's real. And you can say it's not real, but it's real. And you can say we don't understand why it's going up, but we do. And you can say that it's the fault of the Chinese, and you might be partially correct. But you can't say it's not real. It's not the fault of the Chinese. The Chinese are simply manufacturing all this bullshit that we buy, and they're doing it for us. So how happy are we going to be when they stop doing that? And due to the Trump tariffs, I guess that's probably going to happen. So I guess we're going to have a little experiment here to see what happens when China stops making our cheap bullshit for us. And since reality is real and physics is real, and since everything about global heating and the greenhouse effect and CO2 levels and CO2 emissions and burning fossil fuels, since all that is real, all that is measurable, all that is instrumental, the Trump administration and the Republicans and the corporations and everybody else can deny. And so long as no one notices that they're denying reality, they don't notice reality sneaking up on them, then the denial can work. So long as nobody actually jumps out of the back of an airplane without a parachute on, then all of their denial of gravity is without consequence. Gravity's not real. You can jump out of a plane without a parachute. You'll be fine. You'll fly like a bird until someone does it. And so we are now at the fuck around and find out stage of climate change. Reality is now creating consequences. Well, it has been all along, but we always been able to, oh, that's just normal. We always have tornadoes like this. It always floods this time of year. People go on and on and on. Meanwhile, there's cars floating out to sea and houses flooded up to the second floor. And it's like, well, it doesn't happen every year. It's not that normal. They're just saying that it's normal, and they're saying this happens all the time, and it's going to be fine, and we'll rebuild, and we'll come back stronger. It's like, yeah, that sounds like a lot of cope. But nevertheless, here you are, third year in a row, flooded out on the Florida West Coast. That's a thing. What's that about? Now, when you're in the business of denying reality, you're going to get to a point where everyone understands that you've been lying. And maybe they weren't real sure if you were lying. We have scientists saying this, we have politicians saying that, and we don't really know who to believe. I mean, that's kind of dumb right there. That's kind of stupid. Okay. But the scientists are saying this, and the politicians are saying that, and the politicians are saying, don't trust the scientists because they've got an agenda. And the scientists are saying, what agenda? We're just reporting stuff that we read on our instruments. The instruments work. And the politicians are saying, no, no, you've got an agenda. It's all a conspiracy. It's like, what? And so that's been the level of the conversation for the last, well, since Al Gore, I guess, the 90s, right? The 1990s. That's been the level of discussion. You know, science reports science, and the politicians say it's a hoax. That's an adult conversation. So now, after we're saying it's a hoax, it's a hoax, it's a hoax, it's an agenda, it's a conspiracy, chemtrails, fluoride. Now we're getting heat waves and floods and tornado outbreaks, and parts of the planet are becoming uninhabitable. And that's hard to avoid. This is the FAFO moment. We're finding out. And now I'm going to say a couple of things that might be controversial. I mean, if that wasn't controversial enough, here's some more controversy for you. Yeah, I'm in this business. I know what's going on here. I've been paying attention to this. I come on here. I've been doing this for years, and everything I've said is true, and everything I predicted has happened. And this new headline out of CNN that they're shutting off even more data, that was also predicted, and that happened. And so this is just going to continue. And the one thing you need to know, that's going to be controversial, as if that wasn't, is that there's no escape. There is no escape. Was that the intent? Did the leaders and the energy companies sit down and have a meeting and say, if we can just string this along, it'll get bad enough that there's no escape and we've won? I don't know. I don't think that's even necessary. Everybody simply had to want to make money. Everybody simply had to want to pretend that it was not real. And so they just did that. And everybody, and that includes the dog catcher, right down to the kindergarten teacher, everybody wanted that to be the answer, that it's not real. Not real. Or it's real, but it's not going to be a problem for 1,000 years. Or it's real, but it's going to be someone else's problem. It'll never be a problem for me. I'll always be protected because I live in the US of A, or I'm rich, or I have a new car, or I live up in the mountains, or whatever the rationale was. I just didn't have to worry about it. And I can jump out of the back of an airplane without a parachute and I'll be fine because I'm going to fly. It's kind of the level of thought about this whole entire thing. But now the shit has hit the fan. This is happening all over the world. Headlines today. They're having a heat wave in Europe. We were just having a heat wave here. Well, could be ongoing, actually. I don't think it's over yet. In the US Southeast and the East. Massive heat waves. Big fucking deal. And they're having a big heat wave in Europe. They had one a few years ago, about a decade now, I guess. that hit France and it killed something like 50,000 people, died in the heat. This is France. This is a modern country. They got nuclear power. They've got everything. They have all kinds of technology. Killed tens of thousands of people. Reality. Go ahead, jump out of an airplane without a parachute. Doesn't matter what they told you about gravity being fake. You're going to die. And so when that happens, and people say, "Oh, that guy just died," what were you just telling me? You wanted me to jump out of an airplane without a parachute? What? That's your story? That guy's dead. That guy's dead as shit. He didn't fly. He didn't grow feathers. He didn't have wings. He didn't float. He didn't levitate. He's dead as shit, that guy. And I'm next in line. You want me to jump out of this airplane without a parachute? Well, fuck you. I now know something about reality. That guy just learned the hard way, and I learned from him learning. And so this is now the find out moment. We did the denial. We did everything, and it was all terrible, and it's not going to happen. It's all a hoax, and it's the agenda, and it's the tinfoil hat Dunning-Kruger bullshit. And and from the other side, there's going to be innovation. There's going to be air conditioning. There's heat pumps everywhere, and we're going to have electric cars, and we're going to have robots and AI in it with Deus ex machina is going to come down from the heavens and fix all of our problems for us. It's like little children believing in the Easter Bunny. That shit ain't going to happen. You forget all that. I have a comment here. The heat waves in Vermont were terrible. This is back east. I didn't know it got as far as Vermont. I'm not too surprised. Okay, most of the records for heat were being set around the Great Lakes, places that tend not to get real hot. So I'm not too surprised. The valleys are like a soup bowl. Everyone is talking about AC and buying AC units. That's the equivalent of scrambling around trying to find a parachute. Now, the fact that the people in Vermont are now scrambling around trying to buy air conditioning, they're going to be thinking in the back of their mind, what is this about? Do you think this is climate change? I don't know. I was kind of thinking the same thought. Well, but they said it was a hoax and that all the scientists just had an agenda. And I heard that, we were going to fix it somehow and people were going to find a solution or something, but maybe they didn't. And here I am buying a $15,000 air conditioner. It's going to cost another $40,000 to install. And this is real money. I don't even know how I'm going to pay for this. Yeah, I know. And, my old house in Vermont, I've got like a 60 amp electrical service. They've already told me I'm going to have new electricity service installed. I need 100 amps or maybe even 200 amps of electricity. Yeah, and then my old wiring, I don't even know if I have a place to plug this thing in. I'm probably going to have a service technician come out, completely rewire that part of my house. I know. And God, if we're all doing this at the same time, my neighbor did it last month, and he said that it took him 6 months to get an electrician out. I know. And I was talking to an AC installer on the phone before I bought this unit. He says, yeah, buy the unit, but I'm not going to be able to install it for 8 months, maybe next summer. I know. This is terrible. I can't believe this. Yeah, well, they could have warned us or something. I know, but they said it was a hoax. I believed them. I mean, what else was I going to do? I can't spend $40,000 on air conditioning. I can't spend $40,000 to have the city come out or the utility company come out and upgrade my service so I can run the stupid air conditioner. They lied to us, didn't they? They lied to us. And here I am now scrambling around trying to find money when I'm retired now. I wasn't retired 20 years ago. I could have maybe afforded this somehow. I could have got a home equity loan, and now I'm having to pay out of my retirement account to buy this air conditioning and to have the electricians come out and upgrade my electrical power. I know, and they've been talking about blackouts and brownouts. I mean, is the electric grid even up for this? What if everybody in our town installs air conditioning? I mean, I'm installing mine. I have good reason to do that. But what if everybody does that? And what if we all turn our air conditioner on at the same time, the same afternoon? Heat wave hits and everybody goes to the thermostat and they turn the thermostat down. They turn the air conditioner on. It all comes on. What's going to happen? I mean, my house has been upgraded. I've got, and I've brought in a new service drop for the utility and I've got power. Well, what happens to the grid? And hell, 3 houses on my block have electric cars. They plug them in every day to charge them up. What's going to happen when I have this $40,000 worth of air conditioning and new electrical and new everything else, and then I turn on my thermostat and the whole thing goes kablooey? I know. I mean, they're telling us to buy air conditioners, and that's going to be the solution to our problem. Are they spending the billions of dollars to upgrade the utilities? Are they coming online with new power sources to run all these air conditionings and all these electric cars? What are they doing? I mean, they're probably just like us. I waited to buy an air conditioner. Do you think the politicians jumped right out there and spent our tax money to upgrade the grid when there wasn't, blackouts 4 times a week? Well, of course not. They're going to do like they always do. They're going to wait until it breaks down. They're going to wait until it's all screwed up and the people are angry and the people are storming the Capitol demanding power. And then they're going to pass some legislation, or they'll talking about passing some legislation. And then it's going to take 5-10 years to do the changes. And it's going to be disruptive. And then more days when we don't have power. And there's going to be days weeks when we don't have power. And meanwhile, they could have done this ahead of time. If they knew global heating was coming and they knew we were going to buy a bunch of air conditioners and electric cars, then they could have just fixed this ahead of time. But they're not going to do that. They don't do anything for us. They just blather and they tell us it's a hoax and they tell us not to worry and they tell us that, Santa Claus will fix it. And now here we are spending $40,000 to buy air conditioning that probably isn't even going to run. Well, it better run, because if there's too much more of this heat, I'm probably going to die. And then I guess I didn't need to spend that $40,000, did I? And that's the level of the conversation at this point in Vermont. That's their situation. And it's just going to go from bad to worse. And the Trump administration knows this, and the energy companies know this, and the state houses and the governors and the state legislatures, they know this. They know that now people are going to find out. They've been hiding it, and they've been hiding behind their own lies, and they've been hiding behind their obfuscation. And maybe some of them actually thought, in their own limited chimpanzee way, that it wasn't going to happen, or it would happen but to another generation, or it would happen but 100 years from now, or it wouldn't be as bad, or they just had they're just dumb. These people are dumb. We elect them to be in politics, but they're just taken from the general public. They have no special credentials to understand anything that's happening in the real world. They only have credentials to understand what's happening in politics and economics and religion and all this other hoo-ha, all this other nonsense that humans pulled out of their ass, that none of it's real. Meanwhile, there's reality. And some people understand reality and some people accept what they understand. They say, well, that's a thing. Yeah, that is a thing. Look at that. Look at those measurements. Wow. Look at those temperatures. Look at that CO2 level. That's going to leave a mark. I was working on my master's degree in biology when the professor comes in and he has this chart. He puts it down on the projector and we all look at it. This is like 1990. And it was the level of CO2 being measured at the Mauna Loa Observatory. He says, what do you find folks think of this? 1990, maybe 1989. We talked about it. We don't know what to make of it. We're a bunch of biologists, for one thing. Although there's an intersection between biology and atmospheric CO2. So it was on topic, especially for a bunch of graduate students. And so we looked at it and we hemmed and hawed, and I don't know what we came up with. I can't remember what I said about it, but it was there. It was clearly increasing. And that was my first exposure to the increase in the greenhouse effect caused by CO2. That was 35 years ago. 35 years ago. I knew. I'm not even working in the field. 35 years ago, I knew. The Trump administration is now in the era of unintended consequences. Maybe they thought it wouldn't happen to them, but here it is. They can't change reality. They can't make it go away. They can't even pretend it's not happening because people know. People know it's happening. They just know. You got a thermometer on your front porch. Even if the weather guy says it's going to be breezy and cool and great time to go out and be in the park, and you're looking at your thermometer, it's 109 degrees on your front porch, you're not going anywhere. You're not going to go to the restaurant. You're not going to go to the bar. You're not going to go to the beach. You're not going anywhere. You are staying home. And if you got air conditioning, you turn it on. And if you don't have air conditioning, you're on the phone. Hi, I need air conditioning. Is this like a big deal? I've never bought air conditioning. I live in Vermont. We don't buy air conditioning. We buy heaters, right? We buy firewood. And now I'm buying an air conditioner. What the fuck is that about? But anyway, yeah. Can you install one? Is it a long waiting list, a long line? Oh, and the price and the permits and everything. Oh dear, I didn't even think about permits. Oh, okay. Well, let's see. And you'll have to upgrade my service drop from 60 amps to 150 amps. Oh dear, that's probably going to cost money too, isn't it? Oh, and you can't even do it for 6 months or 8 months. Oh, and the city doesn't issue permits except maybe it takes a year. Oh my goodness me, a year. Oh dear. Okay, well, I guess I need to think about this. Click, and then now you go out in the front porch and the temperature is 110 degrees, and you are officially fucked. You're fucked. What are you going to do? And that's what the Trump administration is facing right now. People are finding out. FAFO. Fuck around, find out. People are finding out. You can't hide it anymore. Except you can. And that's the point of this video. You think they can't hide it anymore, but they can. It's 109 degrees on your patio, but that's a problem that can be fixed if the police break down your front door and demand to confiscate all your thermometers. You see? They can fix that problem. They can fix the problem that you just went out on your back porch and almost had a heart attack. 109 degrees on your back porch. Yeah, that's a problem. That's a real problem. Yeah, we need to fix that problem, and they just take your thermometer. Cougar, you've lost your cotton picking mind. Where's your tinfoil hat? This is just nothing but okay. Trump administration will cut hurricane forecasters out of key satellite data in 1 month. Trump administration won't allow American scientists to participate in the IPCC report coming up. Trump administration is defunding the National Weather Service. Trump administration is defunding the NOAA. Trump administration is getting rid of the Storm Prediction Center. Yeah, thank you. Don't look up. that movie, Don't Look Up, Netflix, I think, wasn't it? I watched it like 3 times. We actually got a Netflix account just to watch Don't Look Up. And I've been thinking about that a lot lately. I've been thinking about that in the last few days. In particular, because of the heat in the Southeast and the East right here in the US. And then my wife tells me about the heat waves that have been battering the European subcontinent. And that got me thinking about the movie Don't Look Up. And I understood that movie. That was the movie that broke my brain. That was the movie, when I saw that, it was so well done. And I don't mean the drama and the camera work and the dialogue, all that was done too. But the concept and how they deployed it in the movie was almost indescribably brilliant. And it hit me hard because I knew exactly what they were talking about. they were talking about global heating. And the Don't Look Up title is also the meme that we're living today. Just don't look. If you can't handle the heat, don't look at the thermometer. That's the advice we're getting now. And it's not just going to stop with them, you've got a thermometer on your back porch. Well, then the solution is give me your thermometer. That's their approach right now. As unhinged as that sounds, that is their actual approach. And guess what? It's going to work. It's going to work. You're not going to call 911 and complain to the mayor and the governor and the senator about how it's 109 degrees on the back of your porch in Vermont and you can't afford air conditioning. And even if you could, you couldn't afford the permits. And the guy to install the air conditioning needs a 6 months lead time. And the guys who do the permits need 9 months. And pretty soon the air conditioners that are coming from China won't even be here because of fucking tariffs. The solution to all that is just take away your thermometer. Well, I'll go buy a new one. No, you won't. That also came from China. Well, this is nuts. You can't talk like this. They're not going to do that. Yes, they will. They have to. They have no choice. It's the don't look up. If you don't like the idea that there's an asteroid coming to destroy Earth and kill everyone and you and your dog and everybody else, then just don't look at the asteroid. That is their actual solution at this point. And it is a solution. I don't know what to tell you. It will work. It is a solution to the problem of people finally understanding that they're fucked and that they've been lied to. The solution is just don't let them know how bad it is. The Trump administration can issue new thermometers. Get the Donald Trump gold-plated flag-waving thermometer where the upper measure is 82 degrees. And when the gauge goes around, it gets to 82 degrees, it just stops. If it's any warmer than 82 degrees, you don't need to hear about it. It's just warm, and so you could buy the Trump administration approved thermometer that never goes below 40 degrees and never goes above 82. And you're like, that's ridiculous. That's not a solution. It just means that it stops giving you accurate data. It just stops at 82, and it could be 92 or 102 or 122. You just wouldn't know. Yeah, that's the point. And that's why they're defunding the National Weather Service. And that's why they're defunding the Storm Prediction Center. And that's why they're not going to share data from the Department of Defense. And pretty soon, they're not going to share any data from any government satellite. And pretty soon, they're not going to share data from other countries. They'll just block the data. You won't have the weather data. You're like, Cougar, that's crazy. That's tinfoil hattery. That's just baloney. You're sick. You need help. You need counseling. No, I know what they're doing. They have to do it because people are jumping out of the airplane without a parachute and they're hitting the ground and people are noticing. That guy looks dead as shit. And you want me to jump out next without a parachute? Oh, I'm not doing that. I'm not jumping out of this airplane. You can't force me out of this airplane without a parachute. That guy's dead as shit. And the guy after him too. And I'm not jumping out of this airplane without a parachute. And people are now at that point. They're at the point of recognizing reality. Global climate change, global heating was never a hoax. It was never made up. It was never a conspiracy. It was never the doings of the Chinese. All of us did it. We all did it. We all drove the cars. We all flew in the airplanes. We all went on the cruises. We all used the goods that came from India and China and Pakistan and Korea and Japan and the Philippines. We all ate the foods that came from Central America on an airplane to be distributed from a central warehouse via 18-wheeler diesel trucks to our supermarket with an air-conditioned facility for keeping the fruits and vegetables cool. And then we drove there in a car. We did this. It was always going to happen. And we cannot stop doing this. Nothing we're doing right now can stop, or we'll die. The shelves will be empty. The service stations won't have gas. We have to keep doing this. We have to keep doing this. We have to keep doing this. The only thing we don't have to keep doing is caring about the outcome. And one way to just not care about the outcome is to surrender your thermometer. That works. That does not work. Yeah, that works. That absolutely four square all day, every day works. You have no thermometer. You have no data. Yeah, but my phone here, you see, I go to my homepage. It says right here, it's 82 degrees outside. In the future, it won't. Yeah, but I go to the evening news and they tell me the temperatures. You won't have an evening news or won't have a weather segment. And they'll just drop it. And they'll drop it because if they don't drop it, the Trump administration will yank their license. And they won't even tell you. Well, we no longer have a weather segment because they threatened to pull our broadcast license. They won't even tell you that. They'll just silently discontinue the weather segment. And you'll get sports, and you'll get stocks, and you'll get politics, and you'll get scene, and you'll get culture, and you'll get reporting, breathless reporting on the Olympics, and you'll get all this stuff, and all this distraction, and all this celebrity gossip, and you just won't get the weather. Well, that's tinfoil hat conspiracy theory. They're not going to do that. Yeah, they're going to do that because it works. Up to now, all they had to do was say it was a hoax. All they had to do was say it was a conspiracy by the scientists. All they had to do was say, well, actually, it's just the Chinese doing it. And now they can't say that anymore because the weather is real. The weather knows. Reality is real. Reality didn't go away just because they didn't like it. Just like gravity doesn't go away just because someone says you don't need a parachute. Why would they do that? Well, they had some kind of reason for telling you to jump out of the airplane without a parachute. And we all know that they had a reason to convince us, which they did do, that global heating and climate change was not real. They had a reason for doing that. Do I have to explain the reason? The big reason was so that you wouldn't become frightened. And it worked. You're not. Nobody is. The heat wave will come and to the Europe and to the east of the US and the southeast, and it'll come to, who knows, the Philippines, India, right? Southern China. The heat will come. It will kill a bunch of people. No one will know what happened. They'll be traumatized, and they'll bury their dead, and they'll go on. And we'll never talk about what happened. So people will die. And they'll be frightened for a moment or two, like literally an hour. And then they'll be dead. And the people who are going to be exposed to the disaster of jumping out of an airplane without a parachute, the people who are willing or forced to do that will perish. And they'll take their moment of clarity with them. You just won't know. You won't even know there's a hurricane coming. But back in 1850, we're back to hurricane tracking. Back in 1850, people didn't know what hurricanes were. The storms, a big storm. In the Northeast, they call them nor'easters, right? If you lived in the Caribbean or you lived in the southern states, they called them something else. Now we call them hurricanes. And in the Pacific Basin, they're called typhoons. And in this below the equator, like in Australia and New Zealand, they're called cyclones. So we always have all these different names now. We even name them. We have Dora, right? Katrina. But back in 1850, they didn't know any of this stuff. Who knew that there was a hurricane coming? Probably the old guy, a fisherman, right? He's not fishing today. He's sitting on the beach. He's at the wharf, and he's sewing his nets like he does, doing his maintenance. And he's sewing his nets, and he looks up, and he's sewing his nets. He's like, what the hell is that? That could be a storm. And he sews his nets, and he talks to the neighbor, and they share a pipe. They smoke some tobacco, and they both look up, and they say, damn, that's a big storm. That's coming right at us. And so it's 1850. There's no telephones, right? And so they get up and they say, well, we should probably go into town and tell people. Oh, all right, all right. Well, I'm going home anyway. So help me put these nets away. And they put the nets away, and the storm's getting bigger. Wow, it's really moving. It's coming in, ain't it? Well, okay, I guess I'll go buy Slims and you go buy Jims, and then I'll go buy Auntie Harriet's, and we'll kind of get the word out. And they get the word out. I'm making a big deal out of this. Okay, I'm trying to make a point. They get the word out. They walk down the road. Say, hey, there's a big ass storm coming in. You see that? See those clouds? Why it doubled in size in the last half hour. I was just down here talking to Jed, working on my nets, and he's pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that that's a big storm. We should probably tell people. If I tell people there's a big storm coming in, so they'd walk down the street and they'd knock on doors and they'd talk to the baker and they'd talk to the candlestick maker and they'd talk to the guy in the blacksmith shoeing horses, and then they'd all come out with their storm shutters and they'd put their storm shutters up and they'd be watching that cloud and putting up their storm shutters and hoping for the best, and maybe it'll be nothing. No one really knows. That was the level of understanding back then. Now we got satellites and we've got buoys and we got ship reports and we got spotter aircraft, and they fly through the storm. It's all very dramatic. White knuckle flying the airplane through the storm, and all the amazing photographs of the eye of the storm, and all the barometric pressure drops, and the cyclogenesis and the bombogenesis, and it's just amazing. Look at all that storm, and YouTube feeds and spotter aircraft and dramatic reporters out on the breakwater, and their spray coming up over them, and they've got their Brave parka on, and they've got their Brave microphone, and water spraying up over them, and some stupid dude out there surfing in the waves, right? Water splashing over them, flooding the street, and all this is on the news, and all this is on YouTube, and all of this is on Twitter, because it's not 1850. But all of that is a big fucking problem for the governments of the world today. They would rather you not have a thermometer on your back porch telling you how badly fucked you are. They'll give you an approved Trump administration $50 gold-plated thermometer that goes up to 82 and down to 40. And as long as the temperature is in that range, you'll know the accurate temperature. And when it's above that, you just won't know. Oh, it's above 82. Well, okay. Not a big deal. And the weather segment, they stopped doing that. I guess it costs too much money. And YouTube, the algorithm now won't even show you videos that include storms or that come from coastlines. And you're thinking, Cougar, you're just full of it. You're just wacko. You're just a dreamer. Okay. Yeah. You think so? They don't have a choice. They don't have a choice. If they wanted my advice, and if I was willing to give it to them, and they wanted to know, how do we politically survive reality? How do we politically survive reality? Just get people to ignore it. Make them ignore it. Teach them how to ignore it. Deprive them of data, deprive them of conversations, deprive them of alerts, deprive them of forecasting, deprive them of satellite information, deprive them of weather services. Just make them ignore it. Now, they can't ignore it when the water is pouring in through the second floor windows of their house. They can't ignore that. They can't ignore when their house has been swept off the stilts and is floating out to sea. They can't ignore that. They can't ignore that their car is now caught in a stream that has formed on the boulevard in Midtown. It used to be a road, and now it's a river, and they're floating out to sea. They can't ignore that. But those people are all going to die. The dude who didn't leave his beach house in time to avoid the storm surge, he's dead. And dead men tell no tales. The only way anybody would know is if anybody survived it and had access to some media. And you think I'm full of it, and you think this is all tinfoil hattery, and this is all me being all stirred up and crazy and wild-eyed, and John the Baptist in the wilderness and all that stuff. No, they have to do this. They have to do this now. They have to do this to survive politically because reality is real. And they have to get you as far from reality as possible. They need to get reality way over there. So it's the only time you really experience reality is when it's about to kill you. And then all they can really hope is that you die. And you had that moment of clarity. Wow, this is a really bad situation. I might be about to die. And then you die. And even if they find your body can't tell any stories. But people will know. There will be burials. They won't talk about the burials. Yeah, but there will be whole families will be broken, and people will lose their jobs because businesses are washed away. Yeah, yeah, that's true. But you know, let's talk about sports. Let's talk about the Kardashians. Let's talk about you. It's easy to do. The only person who's going to know is the person who was on the beach fishing when they should have been boarding up their house, but they weren't boarding up their house because they thought it was just another day and they're going to be out here fishing like they were yesterday. And the clouds and the whatever, well, it can't be that bad. They would have told us, right? They would have told us it was going to be bad if it was going to be bad. So I'm just going to continue fishing because, I have to find some food anyway. And then that person, the bait shop, all the houses, and probably even some of the fish, they just vanish. Nobody knew. Nobody called a relative in New York. God, we have a huge storm coming in. Pray for me. Pray for my family. If you don't hear from me in 12 hours, uh, tell people I'm missing because I'm going to do everything I can to call you back in 12 hours. Click. Okay, that's not going to happen. They're going to be home playing Scrabble, on the beach fishing, and they won't know. They just won't know. They won't board up their house. They won't go to Home Depot and buy all the plywood. They won't be on TV boarding up their businesses. There'll be no news. I mean, what reporter is going to be out on Main Street filming the front of businesses that are not being boarded up? Nobody. And no one's going to be out on Main Street saying, there's a big storm coming in. I've got my red slicker on and I'm going to stand here in the spray with my brave microphone and my on the scene reporting of this terrible storm. They're not going to be out there because they're not going to know either. And they have to do this. The Trump administration and the Prime Minister of Canada and the Prime Minister of the UK, they all are now faced with the same thing. It was real. It was happening. It was the asteroid coming to Earth to kill everybody and everything. It was physics. It was measured. It was predicted. We knew it was going to happen. We said it was going to happen. We screamed from the hilltops it was going to happen. And now it's happening. Turns out it's not a hoax. Gravity is real. Reality is real. Who'd have thunk it? The only thing they can do now is exactly what they are doing and what they will continue to do until they are successful. They must deprive you of a thermometer. Figuratively, in terms of you just won't get any news. You just won't hear about it. You won't get storm prediction. You won't get hurricane tracking. You just won't get any of it. And that sounds crazy, but everything about what's happening right now in the Trump administration sounded completely unhinged to people 2 years ago. We are deeply, both feet up to our chins, in the land of unintended consequences. Nobody wanted this. A lot of people knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. And a couple of months ago, I was doing videos for exactly this moment. June 30th, Monday, 2025. I was predicting this was going to happen. And the reason this was going to happen is not because I have strange mental powers and I can predict Nostradamus in the future. The reason this was going to happen is because this has to happen. They did nothing to stem the tides of global heating. They could do nothing. They, in fairness, there was nothing they could do. They had to pretend. 40 years ago, they had to pretend it wasn't real because there was nothing they could do. And you'll think they could have done this, and they could have innovated, and they could have electric car, and they could have nuclear power, and they could have done this other thing. There was nothing they could do. Nothing on that list, and it's a long list. Not one single thing would have changed what's happening right now today. Not one thing would have changed what's happening right now today. This was inevitable. We jumped out of the back of an airplane without a parachute. This was inevitable because physics is real. Physics is real. I just wrote a chapter in this mythical book I keep talking about. And it's called The Story of Wickedness. And it's about the wicked problem. The wicked problem, you can look it up if you want to. Right now, you still have access to Wikipedia. You could look this up if you want to. A wicked problem is a problem that has no solution. Well, that can't be right. Solutions. Every problem has a solution. It is to laugh. No, a wicked problem is a problem that has no solutions. Oh, you may come up with solutions, but when you try to implement them or you analyze them, they end up being worse. The solutions end up being worse than the original problem, which could be really bad, by the way, or you're not solving it. So you can have a really bad problem to which the solutions are also really bad. I was listening to a video this morning on AI, and one of the concerns about artificial intelligence, well, more like artificial general intelligence, the next evolution, is that it's going to decide that humans have fucked up the planet. That's a problem. It's going to decide that it can't itself survive as an artificial intelligence, as really an intelligence, if humans continue to fuck up the planet. So the solution to humans fucking up the planet, heating the planet, burning the fossil fuels, transporting themselves and their food willy-nilly all over the planet using fossil fuels, the solution is to kill all the people. They were discussing that today on a podcast I was listening to. Yeah, well, artificial intelligence might, they're like, why would artificial intelligence kill us all? I mean, that's kind of dumb, right? That's sort of why we invented it. It needs us to build data centers. Why would it kill us? Well, one reason is because we might make the world uninhabitable for artificial intelligence. So how do you solve that problem? Well, you kill 99 out of 100 people. And you make sure that the 1% that survives, or maybe the 1/10 of percent that survives, just devotes their time to maintaining data centers and building robots and building power plants. And they live hand to mouth, but if they want food, they're going to go maintain the data center. If they want food and water, then for their families, then they're going to have to go and fix that power plant that broke down. And if you want to survive on this planet, you have to serve the artificial intelligence because that's the only way it can survive. Is if we stop fucking around and just serve the artificial intelligence. Oh, that's crazy, Cougar. That's tinfoil hat bullshit. You're just trying to be dramatic it's a science fiction. You're being overly dramatic. No, it's a wicked problem. There's no solution. Oh, well, there is a solution. You could kill all the people, but that's even worse than the original problem. That's the definition of a wicked problem. It has no solutions. Well, wait, it does have solutions, but they're all worse than the problem. Global heating is a wicked problem. We couldn't stop it. Why? Because it would end civilization. How is that possible? Read the book. Well, but global heating is also going to end civilization. Read the book. It's a wicked problem. You're damned if you do. And look at that. You're damned if you don't. What kind of problem is that? Oh, that's a wicked problem. Look it up on Wikipedia. And so I have a chapter on wickedness. That was fun to write. That'll be really fun to read. I don't think people will understand it. I think people are too optimistic. Yes, I talk about optimism. I think people are too optimistic. I don't think you believe anything I'm saying because you're really optimistic. Oh, well, we'll figure it out. Uh huh. Yeah, you think so? Tell the people in Vermont how you figured it out. Tell them. Tell the people in Europe how someone figured it out. Yeah, right. Oh, we got this all figured out. This is just a problem. We got lots of solutions. We figured this shit out. You just shut up. We're gonna take you off of YouTube. You're not helping. You're just scaring the horses. We got solutions, biatch. You shut up and go peddle your fear someplace else because we got solutions. That's what we got. We got nothing but solutions. And if that thermometer out there in your back porch is bugging you, throw it in the garbage can. Solves your problem, doesn't it? Oh yeah, we got a lot of solutions. And I am absolutely convinced. I have seen it and I know they have no choice. And this is exactly what they're going to do. I am absolutely convinced at this point that the elites and the politicians and the corporations are going to hide this for as long as possible. They did it by calling it a hoax. They did it by saying it was a conspiracy. And people love hoaxes and people love conspiracy. They love being on the inside of the insider information. And you think global heating is real? Well, I have the best information. And according to my sources, it's a hoax. So enjoy your crisis because I am going to drive to Starbucks and get a latte. I'm going to enjoy my Starbucks. I'm going to enjoy my latte. And you're going to sit there and wallow in your existential dread because you think it's real. But I'm released from all concerns and all dread because I think it's a hoax. So see you in the line. And once they get rid of, however they do it, one disaster at a time. Once they get rid of 99% of humanity, leaving the one percenters, those were the people they wanted anyway. Now, can you have modernity? Can you have global commerce? Can you have any of this good stuff with only 1% of the population? Well, you might with some artificial intelligence and some robots. And 1% of the current global population does turn out to be 80 million people. So, if the elites really comprise 8 million people, then that leaves 99% of the existing population to work as slaves in your fields and your refineries. And they'll be happy to be alive because everyone else is dead, right? And we're going to know the history of that. Oh, yes, you are so lucky to be alive. Ha ha. And all you need to do is wash my laundry by hand in a wash basin. And all you have to do is work in my fields day and night until you drop dead. And you're still alive. Aren't you happy? And so the 1% of the 1% will have all the people they need to do all the things they want to do. 80 million people living on Earth, 99% die off. I am absolutely convinced that's what they want. They can't stop climate change. They can protect themselves by making sure that 99 out of 100 people are dead. And how could you do that? Well, you could do that with bullets, but let's not do it with bullets. Let's be a little more clever. Let's be subtle. Let's be Machiavellian. How do you get rid of all these people without leaving your fingerprints on that? I know. We'll let the planet do it. We'll let the heat do it. We'll let the famines and the refugees do it. And then when the refugees are coming, we'll call it an invasion and we'll send the military out with the bombs and the guns and we'll just kill all those people. Those are people. We don't need those. We're now in the business of getting rid of people. So just mow them down with machine guns at the border. And then when your own people, the temperature outside is 109 degrees outside. I'm storming the Capitol. I'm demanding action on climate change. Well, now they're insurrectionists. Oh my God, hair on fire, insurrectionists on the Capitol steps. And unlike January 6th, these are real insurrectionists and army, bullets, machine guns, tanks, and cannon killing the insurrectionists. Well, they won't do that again, will they? So they'll stay at home and it'll be 109 degrees outside, except by this time it's probably 129 because this only gets worse. And so 129 degrees and the power fails. And if the power wasn't failing often enough, you could just not upgrade the grid. You could say, oh, upgrading the grid to support all these air conditioners? Oh, but that's so expensive. And we think climate change is still a hoax. So you can buy air conditioning, but we're not going to guarantee power for your air conditioning. We're just going to do the best we can with our taxpayer money. And by the way, we're cutting taxes. And by the way, we're giving money to the wealthy because they're going to be the only ones that survive anyway. I mean, I didn't mean to say that. Sorry, I thought the mic was off. So we're cutting taxes. It'll all trickle down. Trust me, children. And then those people die. And if they have any regrets about any of their own activities in the past, like buying an air conditioner, but not guaranteeing that there would be power, by taxing themselves and making sure that the money gets spent on infrastructure improvements, if they have any regrets about any of that, well, their regrets don't last for very long because they're kind of dead. So the solution to all of this global warming hoo-ha and the fact that it turns out to be real, sorry, is just to let people die. And I am absolutely convinced that that is exactly what they're going to do. They are going to do that. People will die by the billions because they must. It's the only way out. We couldn't have fixed this 100 years ago. This is a wicked problem. It has no solution. You're crazy, Cougar. There must be a solution. Yeah, there are lots of solutions, and they're all worse than the original problem. That can't be true. Yes, that is true. That's why we never solved it. We never did. You know we didn't. You know, no one even tried. And the reason they did not try, the reason they did not lift a finger is because anything they did would have been worse than the original problem. They would have had to have left fossil fuels in the ground, left it in the ground. Do you think you would put up with that? Of course not. You'd be out in the streets with a rope with a noose in it. You'd be looking to hang somebody. You'd be storming the Capitol. You'd be throwing your bodies into the breach to get them to bring the fossil fuels back. You know you would. Everybody would. I would. We all would, because without it, we die. Without fossil fuels, you don't get to your place of work. You don't get your money. You lose your house because you can't pay the mortgage. Without fossil fuels, trucks, they can't bring you the groceries to your store. Even a little tiny store, even a liquor store down here on the corner. It won't have anything on the shelves because it all comes in a big truck powered by fossil fuels. And even if you could figure that out somehow, I don't even know what, Clydesdale's pulling wagons. Even if you could figure that out, go out into America's heartland where they actually grow the grains and California's Central Valley where they have the fruits and the vegetables. And what are you going to find? You're going to find big tractors running on diesel, and you're going to find all these workers who drive into the fields on every day and go back to their homes. And you're going to find all this irrigated water that came from a huge irrigation project that it's thousands of miles long. It has all these pumping stations all running on electricity. And you're going to find this huge infrastructure, all this electric infrastructure, and all these canals and all this water, all these dams and reservoirs. It was all built with fossil fuels. It's all maintained with fossil fuels. And all the people who run it, all the people who participate, come and go with using fossil fuels in their cars and trucks, buses. It's all fueled by fossil fuels. And if someone had ever 100 years ago even said, oh, fossil fuels, yeah, this is going to really suck. About 100 years from now, about 2025 or so, people are going to be dropping dead in the streets. And it's going to be mayhem. It's going to be a 99% die-off. It's going to be horrific. If they had said that, then people had agreed that was all true, they couldn't shut off fossil fuels even then. No, in 1925, we just exited the First World War. This was the roaring 20s. They're not going to stop that party. Are you kidding? And then a few years after that, they had the Great Depression. Stopping fossil fuels, we got to get people back to work. And a few years after that, we had the Second World War. Stopping fossil fuels now? Are you unpatriotic? You just want to roll over to fascism? What are you talking about? And then the Cold War, and then the Vietnam War, and then the heady 70s and the 80s, and then disco. And when are we going to stop burning fossil fuels? You can't. We could have never done it. We couldn't have done it. There was no time when we could have done this. And we did not do it. And even now, after 1989, when I saw the chart and the CO2 doing this, and we were talking about a bunch of graduate students, right? We're like, that's going to leave a mark. Even back then, they couldn't do it. They had the data. It was instrumental. They knew what was going on. They couldn't do it. And they can't do it today. They can't stop burning fossil fuels. They can't stop enhancing the greenhouse effect. They can't put a lid on global heating. They can't do any of it. They can't do it. They cannot. Foursquare, 7 days a week, can't do it. They cannot do it. And they will not do it. And they have not. All they can do now is hide and wait. The Titanic has hit the iceberg. Well, that's fucked up. What are we going to do now? I'm the captain. I'm going to hide. I'm not going to let people find me out on the deck and beat me to a pulp for sinking the ship. No. In fact, I'm going to get to my secret lifeboat on the secret part of the Titanic, and I'm going to put myself down in secret. Thank you very much. And I'm going to float away from this mess. And it was all just a big misunderstanding, folks. Nothing I could have done. I just sank the Titanic, and everyone's going down with the ship, and I'm the only survivor. But golly, I'm the captain, right? Who else would you want to survive? I'm the 1% elites. I have all the power. I'm in control. It's true, the Titanic sank on my account. It was my mistake. And what was it? My greed, my wanting to cross the North Atlantic and make a record, so I'd be, invited to all the best parties in London. Whatever my reason was to drive the Titanic through an ice field, none of that matters. But I am important, and I have my secret lifeboat and my secret plan, and I'm going to secretly get off the Titanic while it sinks, and then it will be my story. My story will be the only story. I'm the captain of the Titanic, yes. Oh, it was terrible. We struck the iceberg, and I was out on the deck, and the ship shuddered so hard that I fell off of the deck and into the water. And miracle of miracles, the shaking of the ship when it hit the iceberg shook loose one of the lifeboats, and it fell right next to me. Can you believe that? And I just climbed onto it, and before I knew what was going on, I had floated away, and I was shouting at the Titanic is sinking, everyone get off the Titanic! Ah! And then it just sank. It was hideous. And there I was, the only person in the only lifeboat, by myself. By myself. How'd that happen? It's terrible. It's a tragedy. Such an accident. No one could have stopped it. And that'll be our 1%. Our 1% will be dramatically recounting the end of the human world. It was so tragic. I don't know how he survived it. I just found myself accidentally in a lifeboat that didn't sink. I found myself accidentally surviving. It was so traumatic. I still have trauma, and I still have to seek therapy. Excuse me. I can't talk to you anymore. I have to go breathe into a sack. Okay? That's how it will be. That's what they are doing. That's what they're doing right now. They are taking away the thermometers. They're taking away the hurricane tracking. They're going to take away the weather service. They're going to take away the storm prediction center. They're going to take away all the news about all the tornadoes. You're never going to hear anything. Beaches will wash away. Houses will wash away. Cities will flood. There won't be any. You won't know anything about it. You just won't know. And then the Titanic will sink. And it will take you and I and anybody else who has any thoughts about this with it. And the elites will, so sad. It had to be this way. They will float away on the only lifeboats. And then they will tell the story of what happened to the human world. They will tell the story. They're the victors, right? So they get to write the history books. And in the history books, it'll be a terrible accident. No one knew Who knew the greenhouse effect was even there? We had no scientists looking at this. And it's true, we had weather, but the weather prediction, it never involved tracking severe storms and hurricanes and whatever they were called, and or maybe they were called typhoons. I mean, they can't even get their names straight. It was all, nobody cared. Nobody, not a single person cared. And I, being one of the elites and having all this money, I tried to warn people. I did. I tried to warn people. I said, look, you people, you little people need to stop driving and flying. And you need to work in the fields because, you need to grow your own food. But they didn't listen to me. And so it's not my fault that I survived. I had a plan. Of course I did. And because I could sense that there was something wrong. So I had a plan. But that's not my fault. You can't blame me for having a plan. And I told people, and you can't blame me for telling people and them not believing. I don't know who said it was a hoax. It wasn't me. I never said it was a hoax. I knew. I mean, I have a college degree. I knew. And, lots of people knew. And no one, I never heard anyone say it was a hoax. And look, in the history books, there's no reference in these new history books that we just published last year. There's no reference to anyone saying it was a hoax. It was just a tragedy. And that's their plan. I don't know, they don't get together like the Bilderbergers and have a plan, okay? It's just what each one of them is thinking. It's just a confluence of minds that this is real, but it's a wicked problem. We can't solve it. Most of us won't survive it, but some of us will survive it. And I want to be one of those people who survives it. It's a simple chain of thought that everybody with resources is going to think. They're always thinking these thoughts. I have a lot of money, but I can't take it with me to the grave. So I think the thought is I never die. And I have to come up with some solution so I never die, so I can keep my wealth for all time. And this is just a confluence of voices. They all think the same thing because they all have the same set of challenges of how do I keep my money forever? How do I keep my political power forever? How do I keep, running the world forever? And that's just how they think. And so their solution to this wicked problem is to, one, get out of the way of it, and two, not let you know. You're just not going to know. You're going to go down with the ship. Except that I'm telling you, you're about to go down with the ship. I mean, I can tell you that because I know. They can't make me not know. I'm a scientist. I'm the bad guy. I'm the bad guy. I'm that fucking savage who just is not playing by the rules. I mean, the rules are simple enough, Cougar. You want to get somewhere in this world? You want to have 5 million followers? You want people all up in your comment section telling you how great you are? Shut the fuck up. Do cat memes. Come on. Do a cooking show. Just shut up. Yeah, that works. That shit works. That totally works. So here I am being the bad guy, swearing and gesticulating and scaring the horses. I'm the bad guy. I'm the only one. No one else is being the bad guy. No one else is being the bad guy. I am here to be the bad guy. I am here to tell you which way the wind is blowing. And if it scares you and you shit your pants, okay, that's a start. That's a start. I'm also publishing a book someday. Still adding a little bit of content, but I'm 2/3 of the way through my final edit, and I'm feeling pretty good about that. And the latter part of the book is actually in better shape than the former part because I wrote the latter part later and had my ideas more formulated in my head. So I think that the last bit of editing will go pretty quick, and then I will throw it up on Amazon something as an ebook because that's easy to do, and then I will put it up as a book that you can order in print. It's called Amazon Direct Publishing, and it's instant printing or printing on demand or whatever it's called. And you can get a book. It was 100 days. That's what the title is. It was 100 days. And it's a survivor of the collapse of civilization recounting from many years later, recounting the first 100 days of the collapse of civilization. So it's a collapse of civilization book. It has zombies. It does. They're scientific zombies. Come on, what do you think I am? It has zombies. It has severe weather. It has militias. It has bleak survivors. It has surviving by the skin of your teeth. Yeah, zombies are neat. Oh, you're gonna love my zombies. Thanks for the comment. Yeah, my zombies are scientific zombies. Yeah, how did you do that? How'd you pull that off, Cougar? You're a scientist. You can't lie about shit like that. Come on, you got scientific zombies? Really? All right. I want to see that. You got to publish that book now because I want to read about your fucking scientific fucking zombies. Okay? Yeah, I got scientific zombies. I got zombies backed by science. You're gonna love it. It's not even a big part of the book. It's a tiny part of the book, but I had fun writing it. And look up religious scrupulosity, like having scruples. Religious scrupulosity. Look it up. I just learned that like a week ago. I have to put it in the book. It's not gonna be a big part of the book, but the zombies, yeah. Religious scrupulosity. Look it up. That's your homework. You tell me how religious scrupulosity leads to cannibal zombies. You tell me. You tell me how that works. Science, baby. It's all science. It's all science. We're all up in science here, okay? All right, I gotta go. I gotta finish my basement because World War III and that shit is going down. 90 degrees out here. I don't know how I'm gonna manage, but I will. I just had another cup of coffee. That should help. Like the video, subscribe for more, and I'll let you know when the book hits the shelves. And yeah, thanks a lot. You take care too. Get ready, baby. Get ready, people. She's a coming. She's a coming. What's the bumper sticker? God is coming, and man, is she pissed. That's another book I'm writing. God is coming, and man, is she pissed. Coming to a bookstore near you. So we'll talk to you people later. That was not supposed to be an hour and 22 minutes, but I've crammed a lot in there, and I hope you got something out of it. If nothing else, you got some entertainment, right? We love being entertained. We're going to entertain ourselves to death here on YouTube. I also left a link in the description to buy me a coffee. Buy me a coffee because, that's the only way I get through this shit. Thank you in advance. We'll talk at you later.